Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today we'll start with a fresh new topic, right? We'll start with a new chapter. And yes, a good news is that this chapter is common for you both the examination papers, which is the corporate and allied law as well as your auditing and assurance, right? So the chapter's name is Audit and Auditors. So when we go ahead with a chapter, one thing is for sure that this chapter carries a good weightage. One, because you get a question from this chapter in your examination. Second, you get a question in your two papers, not just one, right? But before we get ahead with the chapter, right, we should understand in a plain statement about what is an audit and who is an auditor, right? So without getting into the criticalities and the technicalities of what an audit is, if we simply try and understand, then audit is nothing but an independent examination or an inspection of the books of accounts of a company, right? And which is done by an independent body. So if the management of a company themselves, they inspect their accounts, it will not be termed as audit. So if you want an audit to be conducted, it has to be conducted by an independent body or an individual, right? And that independent individual or a body that conducts an audit or that conducts the inspection of the books of accounts of a company is termed as an auditor. Okay, so auditor basically is not necessarily an individual. Auditor can also be a firm, which is typically called a firm of auditors, right? But when we say that the company needs to appoint an auditor, means a company can appoint an individual or it can also appoint a firm as an auditor, right? So are you getting into the context of what an audit and who is an auditor, right? So understand, when we're talking about audit, right, it is a procedure that has to be conducted. It is an ongoing process. But to initiate that process, an auditor has to be present. And an independent body or an independent individual to be present in a company to audit or inspect the books of account, this process cannot be initiated by the independent body, right? Like for example, if there is a company XYZ and I think, okay, I should go and audit the company, I simply cannot go and start the audit, right? So the initial part of conducting an audit, it starts with the appointment of an auditor, right? So the company that appoints the auditor or the company that needs its account to be audited will appoint an auditor, right? And now for the appointment of the auditor, we will get into the section 139 to understand what appointment means. So section 139 subsection 1 deals with the appointment of auditor at the AGM. Yes. So the auditor, if with the statement what you understand is the auditor of a company is appointed only in the annual general meeting, right? So the first, as we know that when the company is incorporated, right, they have to get their board of directors in place and all the promoters, they discharge their duties and liabilities to the directors and the members and stuff. Those things are during the incorporation. But after the company has been incorporated and after they have started the performance, right, they're getting into a lot of expenditures and incomes and the operations and a lot of things, right? So when they hit their first annual general meeting, that is the meeting when they will have to decide that okay, the operations have started, the accounting has started. Now, when the financial year ends, we'll have to have an independent body who will get into the audit of my books, or I would say an inspection, independent inspection of my books. So for that purpose, in that first annual general meeting, they will appoint their first auditors. So if you look at it, this section applies to all the companies. Yes, now this is very important to note. That section 139 is common to all types of companies that you can see. Yeah. So the section applies to all the companies. When we talk about all the companies, right, basically it applies to all the private company, all the public company, no matter about what the share capital is, whether they have a share capital or they do not have a share capital at all, whatever it be. May it be listed, may it be unlisted, right? Whatever be their borrowing, whatever be their capital, whatever be the situation. If the auditor has to be appointed at that company, if the company is supposed to be audited, the entire section 139 will be applicable for the appointment of the auditor. So what do you understand by this? In a simple text, if you relate, right? that whatever company you are, if you need to appoint an auditor, you will be appointing the auditor in this format. That's it. That means there is no other way of appointing an auditor. Are you clear with that? So if you need an auditor in your company, appoint that auditor in the annual general meeting of the company. Right? Now, auditor is appointed in the first AGM for a period of 5 years. Now, what is this period of 5 years? And why only 5 years? See, if we go into the critical analysis of this 5 year, we will not be getting a very definite answer for that, right? But where the concept lies is suppose if I am the auditor of an XYZ company and I continue the audit for over the period, for the past 20 years, I have been auditing the same company. Now, don't you think I will be very much equipped with the procedures, with the operations and everything, and it will become a ritual for me to do it? Right? And when it becomes a ritual, I will not be investigating or inspecting it with the same vibrant or with the same consciousness as I used to do it in the initial few years. Right? Because now I think I know everything and I'll just keep going in the same way. And that may hamper the final outcome of the audit, the purpose of the audit. That is why the guidance or the Companies Act 2013 says that an auditor needs to change after 5 years. So people started giving this amendment as a term called rotation, where an auditor needs to rotate in every 5 years. So it is not a rotation, right? It is not that an auditor, if he has a client, he misses on the client, or if we say naukri chali gayi kind of a thing, right? It is not like that. It is also an opportunity for new people, for the new auditors. It is also an opportunity that, yeah, maybe the previous auditor did not get into a certain conclusion and the new auditor does. It eradicates the monotonous thing, right? So for example, if I take a very simple example, Big Fours. So if you say after 5 years EY has to leave a client, then understand even KPMG will have to leave a client. And these clients, if they shuffle between Big Four, they'll shift to one another, and ultimately the quantum remains the same. So criteria of changing an auditor in 5 years does not mean that an auditor is deprived of its client. It's just that it's a matter of change, so that the effectiveness and the efficiency of the inspection remains equal. At least the essence remains there, right? So in the first AGM, if you appoint an auditor, that auditor will remain with you or will be working with you for the next 5 years. What if you want to remove it? You can, right? So the act says that at every individual year, that means the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, when you have an AGM, the appointment of the auditor has to be ratified. Understand ratification? That yes, you again assure, okay, we will allow the auditor to continue, or we want the same auditor to continue. So that ratification has to be done in every AGM, right? So in any particular AGM, if the ratification does not take place, like if the company, if the members, they do not consider the auditor to be fit to continue, or any other reason, if they don't want the auditor to continue at all, what will they do? They will just not ratify the appointment, and hence the auditor will have to vacate the office, right? Now most of you, when you read this topic, this is where you stop. But understand, there's a story beyond. The auditor has left. Now a new auditor needs to come in, right? So will you wait for the next AGM for the new auditor? The answer is no. So once the auditor that was already in place for a company, right, its appointment, if it is not ratified, it will result into the casual vacancy of the office of an auditor, right? And then when there's a casual vacancy, the entire scenario goes out of the hands of the members to the directors. And the directors are the board of directors are responsible to fill up the casual vacancy, right? And they will fill it in accordance with subsection 8 of the section 139. So there is a subsection 8 provided for that specific thing, that okay, this is how the board of directors is gonna reappoint the auditor, or actually fulfill or fill up the casual vacancy, right? Now if we get back to the topic of rotation, I would say, or the topic where the appointment is provided for a term of 5 years, then what happens is that in the first AGM, right, an auditor is appointed. That auditor will continue till the conclusion of the 6th AGM. First AGM it's appointed, in the second AGM they complete their 1 year, third AGM they complete their 2 years, and consecutively in the 6th AGM they complete their 5 years of tenure, right? So when we say they hold the office till the conclusion of 6th AGM, so they will have to be ratified at all individual AGM, right? And in the 6th AGM, company will now appoint the next auditor. So the first auditor is appointed in the first AGM, and if all the ratification goes in process, if all the ratification is done in proper time, the next auditor will be appointed in the sixth AGM. Getting the point? So this is a period of 5 years, and every 5 years they have to be ratified. Right? And in the sixth AGM also. Now, right, we'll not get into that topic. So this limitation of this rotation and whether the auditor can be reappointed or what is the exact tenure for the auditors, we'll decide it or we'll discuss it into the next subsection, right? So over here, just understand it is the appointment of an auditor that we are discussing. So appointment in the first AGM and will conclude in the sixth AGM. Right? So whenever auditor is appointed, that AGM will be the first AGM for the auditor, and the auditor will continue to hold office if ratification is in process up to the sixth AGM of the auditor. Got the point? Yeah. So always remember that it is from the first AGM to the sixth AGM, and then that AGM or wherever they are reappointed from that AGM to the next sixth AGM. Right? So if, for example, the company was incorporated in 2002, right? So that was the first AGM is held somewhere around 2 or 3, depends upon when the company is incorporated. And then the sixth AGM, the auditor will retire. From that till the next sixth, the next auditor will continue. But if in between it is not ratified in the second or the third year, then from the third year to the next 5 years, that is the sixth year from the third year, will be the tenure for the next auditor. So after the first appointment, whenever the auditor is appointed, from that year to the sixth AGM, or from that AGM to the sixth AGM, the auditor will continue. It is as simple as that, right? So the rest of the things we'll see in the other subsections when we'll understand about the tenure and when they leave, how can they be reappointed, what are the procedures, all those things, right? But before that, we'll understand in detail about the Rule 3, right? And the Rule 3 is the manner and procedure of the selection of the auditor. Okay, so Rule 3 is a topic of a discussion. It will extend a little bit. So it's better we take up the Rule 3 in the next lecture, right? So in this lecture, what you have understood in the crux is the concept of audit, the concept of an auditor, and the appointment and ratification of the auditor. It's as simple as that, right? Section 131, subsection 1. And the rest of the things will be continuing in the subsequent lectures. So with that, we conclude this class, and I'll see you guys back in the next lecture. Until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.